All right, well, just real quick, I just want to remind you about our website. I used to have people act surprised when I bring up the website. Website? Very easy to remember the address, just bbfohio.com. It'll take you there. That's what it looks like right now. It may not look that way when you get there if you're watching this in the future, or listening to the future, or you try it in the future. All right, that's what it looks like in the browser. And then all you do is scroll down, and if we're not live, you'll see a countdown most of the time telling you when the next live stream will be. But right there is the live stream. That's where you'll find it. So let's say you normally watch on this or that place and it's just not, like YouTube's not working or you can't get it, you're on vacation or whatever. Always remember, go to bbfohio.com, and if we're live, it's there. And then that doesn't really work right now. We got to get that fixed. Then anytime, anywhere, if you have internet access, you just scroll down past that point and you'll see most recent messages. And all you do is click on whichever one you want to listen to. And then that will take you to sermon audio, where you'll see the video that you want to hear. And I don't know why it's scrolling on me without me telling it to, but it did. And then that's just like that. You can start watching. So I just wanted to explain that. There are a couple of people I tried to explain it. It's hard to explain things in text. You know, text to me, if it's more than a few words, spelling is such an issue. Whoop, open it only again. All right, so anyway, that leads us to our current events update. Israel is still at war. Today's date, 8/20/25. Still 50 hostages with 20, they're saying now. I need to update that. The last I heard it was 20. Thank you very much. October 7, 2023 is the date to remember. All this started. It was Hamas who started it, not Israel. Been no changes regarding Israel hostages, so we'll look at other news in and around the land of Israel. But first, we pay tribute to another starving Gazan in Palestine, or he's another starving Gazan Palestinian. Put it in quotes, you know why. But you just have to feel sorry for starving people like this guy. He's serious as can be, and he makes videos talking about how little food they have there. Soliman Hijjy is his name. Pray for him to lose weight. He's got the same problem I got, but he makes me look skinny. But it's just amazing. But there's Wire magazine online. Interview, Gaza's famine can't be described. That's a quote from this guy. It can't be described because a lot of it is a lie. You can't describe a lie. I thought that was pretty funny. But some good news about a bad organization. The International Criminal Court is criminal. And the U.S. has now sanctioned 4 I.C.C. officials citing actions against U.S. personnel and Israel. Quote, the U.S. is imposing tangible consequences on those who directly engage in I.C.C. actions against U.S. personnel and Israeli officials without the consent of their countries of nationality. This International Criminal Court is like the UN itself. It only has as much power as member countries will submit to and allow them to have, which means they don't have any power. There's very little of anything really done. They suck a bunch of money out of the United States of America and spend it to enrich terrorists. That's really what the UN does. And a rare improvement between Israel and a Gentile nation. Zambia has reestablished their embassy. After 52 years, Israel is now reestablishing their embassy in Zambia, or Zambia. Now the emphasis, according to how you pronounce it there. Israel closed their embassy back in the 1970s because there was so much Marxism and Jew hatred and Islamic influence and everything, and they just closed a bunch of their embassies in the early 70s after the Six-Day War and Yom Kippur Wars, there were a lot of hostility. So that's a good sign. It'll be temporary, of course. It won't last long, but we're glad to see it. So I always say this when you see that kind of thing: watch and see if Zambia doesn't become an African power if they continue pro-Israel policies. Of course, the far left and far right, neo-Nazis and Marxists, they'll say, well, of course, if they're pro-Israel, because then the Jews run the world. But actually, it's because of Genesis 12:1-3. That's why they'll be blessed if they continue. On the other hand, the godless Dutch, also known as Holland and Netherlands leaders, continue to curse Israel. I showed the lady Sunday, but even as conditions in the Netherlands continue to deteriorate, and they suffer from the policies of the New World Order, the World Economic Forum, and all those groups, the Dutch Defense Expo bars Israeli firms from the 2025 event. You're going to bar one of the top 2 defense programs in the world just because you hate Jews. That's the only reason to do that. The organizers of this, called the NEDS trade show, the largest defense event in the Netherlands, have decided to exclude Israeli companies from the 2025 edition in Rotterdam. Well, it's their loss. Amen. And we'll let this Gaza-born American explain the situation in Gaza.
Palestinian. Well, as I was raised a Muslim Palestinian, I'm no longer a Muslim Palestinian. I can tell you that we were raised that everybody fi dal blad, which means everyone for the sake of the land. They specifically breed to have fighters to
kill Jews.
Specifically. Golda Meir said something. She said that, and I'm probably paraphrasing here, there will be no peace until Palestinians love their children more than they hate Jews. No greater words of wisdom have been spoken. No greater words of wisdom. So, before you go on just parroting the mainstream media, do some research, look into the facts, read up on some history, and understand, as somebody who was raised a Palestinian Muslim, the best solution for the area is a one-state solution. It is for it all to become Israel.
Amen.
All of it. Why? Because under Palestinian rule, the Palestinian authorities, aka Hamas and Fatah, take the money that is designated for Palestinians. Palestinians get millions and millions and millions of dollars every year from the UN and from everybody else. They take that money and they build tunnels to get to Israel. They take that money and they buy rockets. They take that money and do pay to slay. All right? Meanwhile, your civilian Palestinians are not living a dignified life at all. At all. They have crappy hospitals, crappy schools that, by the way, only push jihad, and they have crappy living conditions. Women have no rights whatsoever. They're often used as human shields for the jihadi fighters. Children have no rights. You can, again, Google this. You can find their kindergarten graduations and they have their little 4- and 5-year-olds going on with little toy rifles. That's their kindergarten graduation. I mean, that's child abuse. That's spiritual abuse. That's an atrocity. And I'm not even going to start to touch the drug use that they push. Israel is the only country in the Middle East where women have rights, where homosexuals have rights, the LGBTQ community has rights. Israel is the only place where you have, for example, the Arabs of 48. They are the Palestinians that accepted Israel's offer of, hey, why don't you become Israelis? This is 1948. We'll give you full citizenship, you'll have full rights, and you can live in Israel. They accepted it. In the Middle East, they're known as the Arab al-48, which means the Arabs of 48. They live good lifestyles, they have all of their rights, and as a matter of fact, I have seen numerous of their sons, numerous men, join the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. And they're Muslims. Absolutely they're Muslims. And when there are interviews that are done with them, because they're traitors, they say the simple fact, which is 100% true, it is a fact, the Quran says, the Quran is the literal word of Allah, the Quran says this land belongs to the Israelis. 100%. There is not one place in the Quran that claims that this land is for the Muslims. It only says one thing: it was given to the Israelis. So don't go around just, repeating the vomit that's on mainstream media. All right? Have a shred of decency. Do some research. And for goodness sake, if you care about Palestinian rights, you care about them having clean water and good schools, support Israel. That's really all there is to it. Right, baby?
He's back there making noises. Hey, that kid, if she was still in Gaza, that little boy would be raised to be a terrorist. Thank God he's in America. Hey, we're not anti-immigrant, we're anti-illegals. And she's no longer one of those Islamists. And she didn't say, I'm not exactly sure if she converted to Christianity or not, but no, she said she's no longer a Muslim. So, but she didn't clarify what she is. So she probably has elsewhere. I'm not a follower of hers, but we appreciate those who will speak the truth, and we will, along with them, continue standing with Israel. Other current events: the testimony of the police union rep in D.C. about the crime stat crimes committed by officials. We talked about this Sunday.
So can you confirm for us that there have been police officers and detectives and members of law enforcement in D.C. who on the scene of crimes have been told, don't write that one down, or don't add that to the list, or put that down as a more minor offense?
Now listen to this.
Absolutely. That's one of the chief complaints of our members when we go around and talk to them, is that they respond to the scenes of these violent crimes, and inevitably you'll have a captain or a commander or sometimes a lieutenant show up on the scene and advise them to take a report for a lesser offense. One of the things that we see them do often is sometimes there'll be a shooting or a stabbing, and if the victim is uncooperative with the police, which is not uncommon in some areas of the city, they'll be directed to take an injured person to the hospital report, which is not even a crime at all. It's an incident report. Sometimes you'll have a robbery. It'll be reported as a theft. Other times you'll have burglaries that are reported as unlawful entry or thefts. This is something that's been, unfortunately, part and parcel of the police department for some time, and we're very skeptical that these crime stats are accurate.
That's extraordinary. What is the motivation? Why are these commanders or higher-ups arriving on the scene during apprehensions and telling police officers to indicate something other than what actually happened at the scene?
Well, the only explanation could be to keep the crime stats down, because politically that's expedient for the police department and elected officials in the district. I mean, let's go back to how we got here, which is that in 2020, the D.C. City Council passed the Comprehensive Policing and Justice Reform Act, which was a sweeping piece of legislation designed to hamstring police officers, to reduce the size, scope, and responsibilities of police officers. In addition, it also prevented us from holding criminals accountable even when they're convicted of crimes. And so now here we are 5 years later, the police department with an authorized strength of 4,000 sworn members. We only have 3,180, leaving us with over 800 vacancies for the position of police officer.
Imagine.
In order to make up for that gap, the police department uses 2 million hours of mandatory overtime to cover the demand for police officers. And so because of that, crime has skyrocketed in the district. And one of the things that we think is going on in the police department, which who knows how high up that those directives are coming from, is to make sure that these crime stats are reported in the most favorable way possible.
I mean, what you're saying obviously substantiates what we heard from President Trump. He said they were opening an investigation and that he didn't believe, because what happened, I don't have to tell you, I'm speaking to the audience at large, but when President Trump said he wanted to bring in National Guard, all we heard from many quarters in the media and in leadership in Washington was, this is ridiculous. Our numbers are lower than they've been in a long time in Washington, D.C. We don't need National Guard presence on our streets. I mean, this sounds very, very egregious. This is lying to the people, the constituents of Washington, D.C., and lying to the federal government about what your numbers really are.
Well, you're right, Martha. It is a crime under D.C. code. It would be false swearing and it would be false reporting. And those are statutes in the D.C. code that make it illegal to do that, to falsify police reports or to change the data. So if the DOJ is in fact investigating, I hope they do. And if they find that somebody was intentionally manipulating the data, they should be held accountable. It's a crime in the District of Columbia. And frankly, it's a disservice to the police department. It's a disservice to the city. And most of all, it's a disservice to the victims whose police reports are not being properly handled, and we're not dedicating the proper resources to the crimes that they've been victims of. So something needs to change here, and this is an important issue.
They should grant immunity to all the cops who will testify against their superiors who gave them direct orders to do that. And then they fire the administrators that ordered them to do it, and then they prosecute them. Amen. And the only way to clean up the Democrat Party is to lock all the criminals up, and then all the people who are left can try to rebuild a party. In the meantime, it leaves us with a very Marxist, corrupt left party in this country. It's a horrible danger to this country if Democrats ever get in power again. There are plenty of Republicans that I could say I don't want in power as well, but it's not to the degree of the Democrat Party right now. So those giving orders, as I said, to do this are criminals in the D.C. police administration. You remember what they've said for years now? No one is above the law. Unless her name's Hillary, unless his name's Barack, unless they're basically not just Democrat, there's a lot of progressive rhino Republicans, deep state. You're not going to go to jail or go to prison. In another story, the battle for full disclosure from our corrupt pediatricians continue. Yes, I said that right, pediatricians. This is from RFK Jr., the health secretary. This is a screenshot from American Academy of Pediatrics webpage, thanking the organization's top corporate donors. Guess who the top corporate donors are for these pediatricians? Merck, Moderna, Pfizer, and I've never even heard of Sanofi, but they are pushing legal drugs as well. These four companies make virtually every vaccine on the CDC recommended childhood vaccine schedule. This is AAP, American Academy of Pediatrics. They're angry that the CDC has eliminated corporate influence in decisions over vaccine recommendations and returned CDC to gold standard science and evidence-based medicine laser focused on children's health. Again, that is disgusting that our Secretary of Health had to even say that. It is unethical and should be illegal for the American Association of Pediatrics to be bought and paid for by corporations with a conflict of interest. AAP today released its own list of corporate-friendly vaccine recommendations. The Trump administration believes in free speech, and AAP has a right to make its case to the American people. We just need to make sure everybody knows they're a bunch of crooks. But AAP should follow the lead of HHS and disclose conflicts of interest, including its corporate entanglements and those of its journal, which is titled Pediatrics. so that Americans may ask whether the AAP's recommendations reflect public health interest or are perhaps just a pay-to-play scheme to promote commercial ambitions of AAP's big pharma benefactors. Amen. Yeah, he's pro-choice and unsaved Catholic. He's got his issues just like every other politician, but in the position he's in, that is a blessing to our country. AAP should also be candid with doctors and hospitals that recommendations, this is important, that recommendations that diverge from the CDC's official list are not shielded from liability under the 1986 Vaccine Injury Act. So under RFK, they're shifting the list and changing the list of vaccines on their official list. Therefore, if your doctor keeps pushing them and there's an injury, in those cases, you can actually sue. Amen. And we all know that the love of money is the root of all evil, and that's what's behind this stuff with Merck, Moderna, Pfizer, Sanofi, whatever. But I just want to say this, for vaccine information updated by the RFK Jr. administration, go to the CDC website. Been a long time since I've directed anybody there. cdc.gov/vaccines, and you get all the science. That's why I'm recommending it now, because there's science on there now. It used to be consensus. Science is not consensus. And again, if you use Grok, if you use ChatGPT, if you use any of these AI, you go on there and just ask them a question, they're not going to give you science, they're going to give you consensus. But if you go in there and set parameters that include science and not consensus, logic, facts, mathematical probabilities, you set those parameters, then you can get some good answers. Be informed, pray, and act accordingly. Amen? Amen. Comments and questions beginning with Johnny. By the way, nice shirt. The Maiden Mist. That's the Maid, what's it called? Maid of the Mist. M-A-I-D. Yeah. Niagara Falls, yeah. Okay, sorry, go ahead.
And so on that first video with the woman talking about the Palestinians there, so what's your understanding of all the spots that were being cut out? Was it somebody...
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. The reason why you kept hearing blips is because this was recorded when Facebook and Instagram and even YouTube wouldn't even allow you to say the words. Kill Jews, terrorists, terrorism, etc. In other words, of course we don't want people on there calling for people to kill Jews, but it's no common sense. She wasn't calling for the killing of Jews. I got news for you. It's still going on X. My posts are regularly being throttled because I'm saying words that without any context, they just say it's bad so people won't see your post. For example, 2 days ago on X, a guy was blaming the Jews for everything going on, and I basically said, what's funny is I just find that the people who do that are white trash. Now, in a country with free speech and on a free speech platform, there's no way that should be throttled whenever the stuff people say to me includes some of the most vulgar, threatening nonsense, and anytime I ever report that, they're like, we decided that doesn't violate our community, whatever. So I'm telling you, we're just kind of hanging out here and enjoying more freedom than we had in the previous 16 years before Trump and under the 4 years of Biden. But all it's going to take is for the Democrats to get back in power, and we're going to go right back under the censorship and the Marxism. It's going to be bad. We can only hope that it's going to be right before or right after the rapture. And then they can have it. Bob? By the way, Bob, nice shirt. All starts Saturday. Okay, go ahead.
Elon Musk is what, considered starting his own party?
Actually, he did try to, and it's failed miserably. So just today, he announced that he's suspending what he's doing for the time being. Okay. You were going to call it the America First Party or something like that? And it's like, we already have that. It's called, yes. And so, I don't know. You know what the problem is? Elon is a godless man who has done some good things, but he's got an ego the size of Texas, and he can't stand not being the number one guy. Trump's the number one guy, and he couldn't stand it. Everything he said wasn't taken, to the bank, and so he got his feelings hurt, and then he ran out and started saying things that he shouldn't have said, and then he decided he's going to start his own party, and he's realizing it ain't about Elon. It just ain't about him. And I appreciate anything the man can do to make people's lives better and so forth, like that Neuralink. The Neuralink is scary, but there are people able to function in ways they couldn't before. As long as it's being used for good, good. But we all know it's probably going to be part of the mark of the beast. So we take the good with the bad. I got news, your bank account, the internet, most of that is all going to be used with the mark of the beast. So we're all playing with the system, but it's not a sin until they say you're taking the mark as a announcement basically of worship and allegiance to the beast. Then we're all just using the system temporarily. Nancy, you'll be my last one.
Over the last 4 years, look at how many rights we gave away, look how many things. It was just going so wrong that if they ever get in power again,
yeah,
I'm fully prepared for them to come get me and take me to jail.
But and the problem is we all know the short attention span of people and memory. And they're like little babies, little children, and they won't remember when it comes time for the next presidential election. And even if they remember, oh, that's different. That was different.
It's a hard issue. It's got a hard.
Yeah, it's not intellect, but it is this. Jenny and I were discussing this earlier. Unbelief breeds stupidity. It also causes a version of insanity. That's why the Bible calls them fools. The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. But even if they say they believe in a God of their own making, everything, they're still saying that the God of the Bible isn't their God, so they're still a fool. I'm going to let you real quick.
And just a way you can directly tie that into stupidity, even more directly, I think, is when you're not a Christian, you're rejecting Jesus, who is the truth.
Right.
And so,
what happens if you reject the truth?
Then it's stupid.
Yeah. Reject the truth, you remain dumb. And in spiritual sense, lost. Amen? All right.